If there is anything we learned from our previous conversations so far, it's that the 7-day week makes absolutely no sense. Don't get me wrong, weeks by themselves are really awesome. It's a really convenient time measurement that can never be affected by natural events. Their 7 days, however, are based on dubious mathematics and faulty, outdated astrology. Also, who likes odd number divisions? Really, the only reason it still exists is its popularity with major religions. Between various religious institutions that favored the 7-day week and indifferent secular powers, nobody really tried to change it for 1700 years. Trust me, if I get a cent for every time this happened in history, I would get 2 cents, which actually isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. The French Revolution is one of the rarest instances in history where both poor and intellectuals agreed on something. And that would be that outdated non-standard units of measurement sucks. France alone had over 250,000 different units, which made trade between different towns difficult and allowed nobles to cheat in their rent and taxes. How do I still owe you rent? I thought we agreed on 500 livres of wheat. Yes, 200 livres. You are still 56 livres short. 200 livres? But how we're to lose? Not my problem. Now pay up. Therefore, creating a unified system of measurement was of utmost importance in order to empower the people and weaken the aristocracy. This turned into the metric system, which wasn't just limited to weights and distance but also time, where time units were either renamed or redefined. Weeks became known as decades, and they were made up of 10 days. Days were divided into 10 hours. Hours became divided into 100 minutes. Minutes became divided into 100 seconds. And every day was simply named numerically. 30-day months still exist, but they are all now exactly fixed at 30 days, with 5 extra days at the end of the year, which I believe the Egyptians did it first, but I digress. This new Republican calendar was a direct attack against the church, because removing Sundays prevented the church from exercising its full power, while also preventing submission to the church through communal worship. No, Reverend, you cannot collect tithe and you cannot perform sermons. And you, are you closing up shops on Sunday? You can't do that. And why are you wearing your best Sunday clothes on Sunday? And why are you all going to church right now? You can only go there on the Kadi. Alright, that's it, stop. You all violated the laws of the new republic. You have to pay fines or go to jail. And pray that I don't get the guillotined. Well, can we at least pray in church? No. And you know what? Get the guillotined. Now, all that was pretty tame compared to what Maximilien Robespierre did with his reign of terror. This period was very dark with a lot of guillotines, but we're not going to talk about that. But instead we will talk about the new state religion, the cult of the Supreme Being. The cult would congregate every decade in temples of reason, with full festivals celebrating the ideals of the revolution while playing La Marseillaise, all presided by Robespierre himself, who basically guillotined everyone who objected. But then he made the critical mistake of threatening everyone in public, so they guillotined him first, ending the reign of terror and effectively ending the cult of Supreme Being. It should be noted that the Republican calendar remained in official use along with the decade. However, it was largely ignored by the people of France. Really, the only place where it was remotely relevant was in the revolutionary Paris and Lyon, whereas most of the devout Catholic French became increasingly annoyed with the central government over this issue. In fact, when new restrictions were put to prevent people from getting married on Sunday, people just officially got married on Decadi, then officiated the marriage with a priest on Sunday in secret. And generally, over time, people just did not care. There were just more urgent matters in the Republic than policing Sunday. So, when the last political supporters of Decadi, who by the way kept it alive by forming their own anti-Christian cult, were removed from power, there was absolutely no one who had any interest in enforcing the decadal restrictions. The calendar and the decade remained official, but began to disappear under Napoleon. And soon, in 1805, it completely disappeared, fully restoring the status quo. Except of course that Napoleon is the emperor and we got the metric system, and thus the 7-day week survived. Welcome to the Soviet Union, a country ruled by the communist dictator Joseph Stalin, a man who could send you to a gulag to die a slow, painful death for not clapping for him long enough. Stalin had just built brand new factories equipped with brand new machineries, which he plans to use to improve the country's industrial output during the first 5-year plan. One of the ideas proposed to maximize the production was to abolish weekends. Therefore, their production never stops and the machines never become idle. And so the uninterrupted continuous work week, also known as the Dniprievka, was invented. The Soviet Congress initially refused it, but then Stalin, whose opinion was the only one that really mattered, approved it. The Dniprievka was going to be 7 days as usual, but then it was changed at the last minute to be 5 days. As we said before, however, the main modification was the abolishment of the unified weekend, where each group of workers get their own day off at their own scheduled day in the week. This basically meant that instead of replacing the arbitrary 7-day week with an arbitrary 5-day week, the Dniprievka created 5 different weeks with 5 different weekends. This theoretically meant that 80% of the entire workforce would be available at any given time, which should theoretically allow for continuous production. The biggest intended effect, however, was the prevention of any meaningful opposition by limiting all types of social gatherings. For example, you couldn't attend church on Sunday except every 35 days. You could not form a workers' council with your colleagues, which is ironic because that's what Soviet literally means. You couldn't spend time with your friends or even your family because your schedules are always conflicted with each other. In short, it was impossible to form any kind of meaningful resistance against the Soviet government if only 20% of the entire population is available to discuss it at any given time. However, for the Dniprievka to be feasible, it had to significantly increase the production output, which was the original point of the whole thing to begin with. And in that regard, it failed spectacularly. And it all has to do with scheduling. Think about it this way. In order for this shift-based system to work, you need the workers to be able to replace each other on each shift without taking too much time catching up with each other. Most jobs, however, were not designed for this type of scheduling. Therefore, the rushed adoption of the Dniprievka did not allow anyone the time to assess its actual effects. Soon, the production began to stall because of the workers' inability to follow up with each other's work, and some positions ended up being switched almost daily, that it became too impersonal for the people working them, thus creating a lack of responsibility or motivation to perform well or maintain good work quality. Every attempt to make the Dniprievka work, whether through rescheduling or having longer transition periods or modifying job functions to allow interchangeability, has resulted in more complexities, which caused more problems that required more solutions. This is beside the fact that many workers wanted to spend time with their friends and families, which is something they complained about since literally day one. Also, let's not forget about these machines. They can't keep running forever. They need to be stopped for repairs and maintenance. Between all the issues the Dniprievka had, Stalin stated that the Soviet industry was not ready for the continuous work week, and so he suspended the Dniprievka and promised to restore it when better preparations are made, which apparently never happened because the Dniprievka was gone for good, replaced with a 6-day week with a unified weekend, which survived for 9 more years, making for a total of 11 years of Soviet calendar experiments. Yep. France still holds the title for the longest stupid calendar experiment. The Soviet experiment, however, failed for a very similar reason. While the urban populace got used to the 6-day weeks, the more conservative rural population ignored it, instead taking both the official weekend and Sundays off. Stalin was afraid of the instability caused by the urban and rural divide, so seeing that the religious spirit could not be broken, not only was the 7-day week restored, but Sunday was also restored as the weekend. And thus, the 7-day week survived yet another anti-religious totalitarian regime. While other calendar systems still exist, no one in any meaningful scale has ever tried to change the status quo again. But let's admit it, the 7-day week is just a terrible system, but so is any other system that may ever exist. Our entire calendar system is completely uneven, and any attempt to try to change it will always lead in failure. So maybe let's just not do that. And therefore, we will end the story here. Thank you so much for watching.